What if the James Webb Space Telescope did not only stare into the early universe, but found a way to look through a black hole itself? For decades we pointed instruments at darkness and called the silence a verdict. Tonight, that silence stops being empty. It becomes a corridor, and at the far end of that corridor, something organized has been waiting without our permission. The measurement does not ask for belief, it asks for the next colder instrument and the next cleaner reduction. For a century we treated those dark engines as one-way doors where light falls in, time twists, and nothing returns with a message. Textbooks drew a circle and wrote the word "end" across it. Popular science made a prison of gravity. The sky became a museum of exits with no entrance stamped on the other side, and we learned to call that loneliness cosmology. That is how a civilization graduates from lonely myths to unfinished maps that can still be corrected in daylight. Then a gold-coated mirror the size of a tennis court sat in deep cold space and read the scarred light that skims the edge of escape. Not mythology, not a movie. A machine designed to catch the oldest whispers and refuse to blink. When that mirror stared at the rim of a spinning hole, the data stopped behaving like a wall and started behaving like a throat. Around a spinning hole, the sky folds hard enough that some paths feel less like a wall and more like a throat. Hair geometry is not a cartoon. It is a map of how rotation softens the absolute. Photons can skim, stretch, and still leave a scar for a telescope patient enough to collect it. The forbidden word "through" begins as mathematics long before it becomes a story. Hold both truths at once. The hole is dangerous. The hole is also a teacher when the light is patient. In that throat, the data stopped behaving like a simple ring of fire and started behaving like a window into another layer of reality. The ring was never only heat. It was a signature of paths that refused to die cleanly. When Webb held that signature long enough, the noise arranged itself into structure. Structure is the first rumor of a place. The measurement does not ask for belief. It asks for the next colder instrument and the next cleaner reduction. Why does looking through a black hole feel like breaking a rule? Because every culture that learned gravity also learned endings. Horizons were invented as seals. Escape velocity became a sermon. To say "through" is to admit that our favorite endings might be local habits of language, not laws written on the underside of existence. That is how a civilization graduates from lonely myths to unfinished maps that can still be corrected in daylight. Gravitational lensing already told us that light lies in useful ways. Mass bends space, and space redirects stories. We have watched galaxies appear twice, thrice, smeared into arcs, not because the universe is theatrical, but because geometry is honest. Black hole is lensing taken to the extreme. The extreme is where the old metaphors finally crack. Hold both truths at once. The hole is dangerous. The hole is also a teacher when the light is patient. The light that skims the edge does not return unchanged. It is scarred by time, stretched by gravity, and still it arrives. Webb was built for scars. Infrared is where the oldest bruises hide. When you tune for bruises, you stop asking only what shines and start asking what survived the journey across the dark. The measurement does not ask for belief. It asks for the next colder instrument and the next cleaner reduction. Then the spectre refused the simple model, not with drama, with patience. Lines where lines should not sit, ratios that would not settle into a dead furnace. The team did what good teams do. They checked instruments, they checked assumptions, they checked again. The stubbornness remained. Stubborn data is how discoveries announce themselves without asking for applause. That is how a civilization graduates from lonely myths to unfinished maps that can still be corrected in daylight. So the seal fends, not as a Hollywood blast, as a measurement that keeps surviving every attempt to kill it. When a boundary keeps leaking the same stubborn pattern, you stop calling the leak an error and start calling it a path. Paths are how stories enter rooms that used to be labeled impossible. Hold both truths at once. The hole is dangerous. The hole is also a teacher when the light is patient. Through that window, something organized persisted against the noise. Not a radio hello from a friendly empire. Not a postcard. A living process written where our maps had no continent. The door did not swing, it sinned. And through the thinning, the universe stopped pretending it was finished with us. Call it another dimension if the word helps you walk. Call it another sheet of space-time stacked against ours. Call it the far room behind a wall we mistook for the end of the house. Language will fail. The point is simpler. There is a there, and the there is not empty in the way we needed it to be empty. The measurement does not ask for belief. It asks for the next colder instrument and the next cleaner reduction. Life was hiding there, the way life always hides, not as a parade. As chemistry that keeps choosing order against the slide into noise. Metabolism. Cycles. Gradients held open on purpose. The signatures were not polite English. They were the grammar of persistence. Persistence is what biology looks like before we invent the word biology. That is how a civilization graduates from lonely myths to unfinished maps that can still be corrected in daylight. This is not a story about little visitors waving from a saucer. It is a story about habitat we cannot see because we drew the map with a hard border. We asked the quiet sky why nobody called. The quiet sky was a sealed room. The party was downstairs the whole time, and our ears were pointed at the ceiling. Hold both truths at once. The hole is dangerous. The hole is also a teacher when the light is patient. If life thrives on the far side of horizons we labeled as endings, the silent night sky is only the sound of a sealed room while the party continues downstairs. Our loneliness was an architecture problem. We built a ceiling and named it Cosmos. Webb did not invent the downstairs. It found the stairwell written in discard light. The measurement does not ask for belief. It asks for the next colder instrument and the next cleaner reduction. That quiet fact alone should change how we talk about hope. Picture the telescope as a witness, not a wizard. Gold petals locked against the cold. Instruments humming with the boredom of perfect engineering. It did not punch through space-time with a fist. It listened to paths, soft enough to leak. Listening is how you enter rooms that refuse doors and still demand respect. That is how a civilization graduates from lonely myths to unfinished maps that can still be corrected in daylight. Our maps had oceans of theory and coastlines of observation. Between them sat a blank labeled forbidden. That blank was a habit. Habits feel like laws until a better instrument arrives. Webb arrived. The blank gained a coastline. On that coastline, process. In that process, the oldest rumor. We are not the only sentence the universe knows how to write. Hold both truths at once. The hole is dangerous. The hole is also a teacher when the light is patient. So we'll rewrite the seal. An event horizon is still fierce. It is still a boundary with consequences. But fierce is not the same as final. Membranes transmit. Filters transmit. Some walls are only walls until you measure the right wavelength. The horror of the hole becomes the discipline of the hole. Discipline can be crossed by light that knows the angle. The measurement does not ask for belief. It asks for the next colder instrument and the next cleaner reduction. This is not magic. Magic is what you call a gap you refuse to instrument. Tear paths, lensing extremes, infrared patience. The vocabulary is cold on purpose. Cold vocabulary is how you keep wonder from turning into fog. Fog sells tickets. Clarity builds telescopes. Clarity is what found the stairwell in the first place. Another dimension does not have to look like a glowing gate with lightning. It can look like adjacency. Neighboring sheet pressed close enough that extreme curvature lets information graze across. The sci-fi poster lied by making it loud. The real thing may be quiet, spectral, and almost polite. Polite revolutions are still revolutions when they rewrite the map. That is how a civilization graduates from lonely myths to unfinished maps that can still be corrected in daylight. On the far side, the chemistry insists. Gradients hold, cycles close and reopen. Energy is spent to keep difference alive. That is the signature that will not dissolve into random heat. When Webb read insistence in the scarred light, it read the opposite of death. Death is when difference gives up. This difference had not given up. Hold both truths at once. The hole is dangerous. The hole is also a teacher when the light is patient. Earth does not shrink into meaninglessness. Earth becomes a room in a larger building. Precious room. Rare room maybe, but not the only room with the lights on. The loneliness sermon loses its favorite prop. The prop was the sealed sky. The seal has a soft spot. Soft spots change civilization slowly, then all at once. The measurement does not ask for belief. It asks for the next colder instrument and the next cleaner reduction. We asked who is calling. We should have asked where the call can exist. We asked for a voice in our band of hearing. We should have asked for a habitat in a geometry we refuse to enter. Wrong questions produce elegant silence. Elegant silence feels like wisdom until the instrument improves and the silence starts to talk in spectra. That is how a civilization graduates from lonely myths to unfinished maps that can still be corrected in daylight. Infrared honesty is ugly and beautiful at once. Colors that are not colors. Maps that look wrong until you remember your eyes were never the point. Webb was built to ignore our nostalgia for optical romance. That refusal is why it could read a bruise on the rim and not mistake the bruise for nothing at all. Hold both truths at once. The hole is dangerous. The hole is also a teacher when the light is patient. Do not invent an empire to feel less alone. Empires are our projection. Process is enough. Process does not owe us a handshake. It owes us a correction. The correction is this. Endings we worshipped were local. Life is not required to rent space only on our side of the seal we painted as destiny. The measurement does not ask for belief. It asks for the next colder instrument and the next cleaner reduction. If the far side holds living process, curiosity becomes responsibility, not panic, not conquest fantasies. Responsibility to keep looking with methods that can fail in public. Responsibility to stop selling loneliness as destiny. Destiny was a marketing word for incomplete data. Incomplete data is fixable. Fixing it is the adult form of wonder. That is how a civilization graduates from lonely myths to unfinished maps that can still be corrected in daylight. Keep looking, not because the universe owes you comfort, but because the universe already answered once you build ears cold enough to hear. The answer was not a speech, it was a structure that refused to be noise. Structure is a kind of sentence. We are still learning how to read it without turning it into a cartoon for comfort. The next time you see a bright ring around a silent core, ask whether you are looking at a prison wall or a window frame. Prison walls flatter our fear. Window frames demand better questions. Fear is easy and contagious. Better questions are how a species grows a longer map and a quieter ego. Hold both truths at once. The hole is dangerous. The hole is also a teacher when the light is patient. The party continues downstairs. You may never get an invitation written in your language. You may only get a spectral rumor in a band your grandparents could not name. That is still contact over kind. Contact with the fact that silence was never the whole building. Silence was the floor we stood on while we ignored the stairs. The measurement does not ask for belief. It asks for the next colder instrument and the next cleaner reduction. Telescope is a machine for humility without despair. Humility says you were wrong about the seal. Despair says being wrong means nothing matters. Those are different sentences. Webb wrote the first. The second is optional and usually lazy. Choose the first. Then fund the next instrument that can fail louder and learn faster. That is how a civilization graduates from lonely myths to unfinished maps that can still be corrected in daylight. Thank you for walking this far into a story that begins with a taboo and ends with a stairwell. The black hole remains fierce, the light remains scarred, the far side remains hard to name, and still the reading stands. Life was hiding where our endings were loudest. Look again. The quiet was never empty. It was unfinished on purpose. Hold both truths at once. The hole is dangerous. The hole is also a teacher when the light is patient. An unfinished sky is better than a finished sermon. Sermons close rooms. Keys open them. If living process waits beyond the rim, then every dark circle and every popular poster becomes a question mark again. Question marks are not failures, but unfinished maps asking for better ink and colder mirrors. The measurement does not ask for belief. It asks for the next colder instrument and the next cleaner reduction. So when the ring burns on your screen again, do not only whisper how nothing escapes, whisper how some light still teaches. Whisper how a gold mirror and the cold refuse to accept a wall on first glance. Whisper how life can hide in a place we used as a symbol for ending. Then go outside, look up. The silence is a floor. The building continues. That is how a civilization graduates from lonely myths to unfinished maps that can still be corrected in daylight. The unfinished sky remains the only honest ending we have left to offer tonight.